International Monetary Fund says Nigeria's economy to contract by -4.3 in 2020. Nigeria rejects World Bank debt relief offer. National Assembly begins debate on 2021 proposed budget. Plus, oil prices steady on concerns of rising coronavirus cases. The program is Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital, and I am Moplang Dakok. Thank you for always joining us on Business Express. Ministry of Defense gets highest recurrent expenditure in 2021 budget as Nigeria increases investment in national security and human capital development. Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning were presenting the breakdown of the 13.08 trillion naira proposed budget, says reforms are accompanying the document to critically address present revenue challenges. Leah Katung-Babatunde has details.
The 2020 budget, which became effective January 1, was revised mid-year due to disruptions to the macroeconomic environment posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. 2020 will see the global economy contract by 4.9% as projected by the IMF, Sub-Saharan Africa 3.2% and Nigeria 4.2% as projected by the National Bureau of Statistics. The 2021 budget of economic recovery and resilience seeks to reposition the economy for growth, and already initiatives have been put in place to improve revenues.
The integrated revenue monitoring system is designed to ease revenue recognition. E-Customs, approved by the Federal Executive Council, and iTax, that is being implemented by the Federal Inland Revenue, are also being implemented. The TSA implementation, adjudged to be today the best in Africa, is also being strengthened. We have also put in place specific provisions that help to promote social inclusion, with the exemption of small businesses from certain category of taxes.
Currently, for every 10,000 tons of food that is produced, about 4,000 to 6,000 is lost. It doesn't get to the market. And so we saw this as a low-hanging fruit and decided to provision to ensure that food that is produced can get indeed to the market, and that we can encourage investors to come up with value chain or value-adding industries around the agricultural corridor.
Expenditure is put at 13.08 trillion naira, comprising statutory transfers, sinking funds, debt service, non-debt recurrent expenditure, and capital expenditure. Revenue is projected at 7.886 trillion naira, with deficit put at 5.196 trillion naira inclusive of income from 60 government-owned enterprises and project-tied loans, a first of its kind.
13.08 trillion of expenditure includes 1.35 trillion naira of expenditures by those 60 government-owned enterprises.
The Federal Ministry of Works, Finance, Budget and National Planning and Health top the proposed capital allocation list in that order, with critical allocations to education and health. The parameters and fiscal assumptions for the budget proposal include an oil benchmark of $40, daily oil production put at 1.86 million barrels per day, an exchange rate of 379 naira to the dollar, 3% GDP growth, and 11.95% inflation rates.
Shortly after the budget presentation, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, projected a deep recession in 2020, with global growth projected to be minus 4.4% from minus 4.2% in its latest update of the World Economic Outlook. IMF's chief economist, Jita Gopinath, this Tuesday said it is a small upgrade relative to the figures released in June. Growth is expected to rebound partially in 2021, coming back to 5.2%. However, output in all advanced economies and emerging and developing economies, with the exception of China, will remain below 2019 levels well into 2021. Gopinath said recovery from this catastrophic collapse will likely be long and even highly uncertain. Meanwhile, Senate has commenced second reading of the 2021 appropriation bill with emphasis on the need to reverse Nigeria's infrastructural deficit.
All the parameters we were discussed and agreed upon, at least in principle. What remains for us is to closely examine the context and the details in order to sort things out and smoothing the rough edges.
And once it's long-time borrowing, this borrowing will help to resort to rebuild the economy and put back people to work. We've always had with our budget. Is that what the minority leader previously mentioned? That is achieving our projections.
And the debate on the general principles of the 2021 appropriation bill presented by the President last Thursday has commenced at the House of Representatives, and the lawmakers expressed optimism on allocations to the various sectors.
2021 Appropriation Act have been put at a relatively conservative rate so that no challenge, economic or otherwise, will be forced against the implementation of this budget that is tagged to be a budget of economic recovery and resilience.
When the rail from Lagos to Kano is completed, it will address some of the challenges we have, the banditry and the rest, because our young people will begin fully engaged.
I think we should look at adequate penalties for erring agencies or personalities who flout the law.
Joining the conversation on the 2021 proposed budget of economic recovery and resilience is a development economist, Dr. Emeka Okengu. You're welcome to Business Express once more.
Thank you very much.
All right. So the 2021 proposes to spend 13.08 trillion naira with expected revenue at 7.8 trillion naira, while there's an expected deficit of 5.1 trillion naira. What are your thoughts about the numbers?
My first thought would be to say it's sincere, it's practical,
Okay.
it is practicable,
Okay.
it is doable.
Okay.
And I think it reflects the socio-economic realities that we have on ground. Okay, it's not a budget that is too ambitious. It's also not a budget that is too pessimistic. So for me, it is a budget that is cautiously optimistic.
Okay. So the deficit is about 3.5% of GDP. What does this mean for Nigeria's recovery move in the midst of COVID-19?
Well, you see, when you're talking about deficits, deficits are not really death sentences. Deficits are, I'm planning to spend this amount of money. I think I'm able to, on my own, raise this amount of money. And I think that this remaining money, I will need to source from some other places. That's what that deficit is all about. It's trying to say, with what it is we'll put on ground, with our revenue streams and revenue sources, we think we're able to, on our own, be able to do this. But for us to be able to get this budget to a successful run, we will need to be spending X amount of money. So it's all in what you call, what a budget is, a financial plan that you have cast in figures. So what now, becomes the meat, what now becomes the challenge, with every budgeting system is not actually how much, deficit or, how much revenue that you have. It's actually your revenue, to what extent are you able to ramp, the 7.5 million, which is, what your expected revenues are. Against what your deficits are. This is where the challenge is. Okay,
but the Senate has approved some money for borrowing.
Yes.
What do you think that Nigeria should be going the way of borrowing, being that Nigeria, as well as other countries on the continent have been said to have borrowed heavily.
There are two ways you look at borrowing.
Okay.
Okay. You can look at borrowing as capital injection.
Okay.
In that case, then it is now demand-driven. It is now what you call result-oriented. There's another borrowing, which you borrow when you're hungry. Okay. It's now borrowing that is tilted towards your expenditure, your lifestyle, your well-being. Now, so what borrowing are we talking about? Are we borrowing to put into infrastructure that probably will be able to now unlock access to more of our resources? Okay, unlock access to creation of more jobs, unlock access to more income streams or new income streams? Or are we borrowing to probably pay ministers, pay presidents, pay governors? And I don't think that's what this borrowing is all about. Okay, I think we're borrowing to be able to improve on infrastructure. Most of the borrowings, you know, are actually supposed to be supporting ongoing or new infrastructure projects, to my understanding.
Okay, what do you make of the allocations for capital expenditure in the proposed budget?
Well, at 3 trillion, for me, knowing that a lot of our capital, again, okay, most of the capital projects that are ongoing are actually not 100% government. Remember that the PPP component, you know, is still there, and a lot of the capital projects are actually done on PPP loans. Now, what is supposed, for me, my understanding of probably putting in 3 trillion there is to be able to show, okay, capacity, to be able to show whoever it is that's investing that there's a component of this infrastructure that government must be able to carry. Okay. Now, if you do that and you're able to support what it is you're doing, then getting this your required, you know, external funding, okay, which is now what you call borrowing, now becomes a little easier. So 3 trillion is not too good for a country that's had, you know, the years of infrastructure law, infrastructure deficit that Nigeria has had. But like I said to you, the socio-economic realities on ground, okay, might not also allow us to be able to do some more, especially when you're talking about now, you know, our debt to GDP, which is also very, very critical and a major consideration when you want to borrow more money.
Okay, let's talk about where the proposal, we have oil put at $40 per barrel. Yeah. Do you think this is feasible given the dwindling prices of oil right now with the coronavirus pandemic?
Understand that, first and foremost, you know, the fall of the price of crude oil, you know, was not market driven. It was a trade war. Okay, it was a war that erupted, you know, between Russia and Saudi Arabia. Okay, because both countries had been able to put into perspective a framework that was allowing them to produce oil under $10. Okay, which is what Nigeria now as a country is also pushing towards. So it's not about how much your goods sell, it is how much you're producing at. Yeah. And with the new push of government saying that they are pushing to be able to produce oil under 10 barrels, okay, by cutting off, you know, probably one of those add-ons, if you may, or paddings, if you may, or investment logjams, if you may, that can be able to now reduce it to a very simple process. If we're able to achieve the production of oil, even at under $15 a barrel, then we're good to go.
Oh, yes. That's good to know. So in the proposed budget, yes, it said about 60 government-owned enterprises have been added to the revenue drive.
Yes.
Yes. What do you make of that plan? Do you think that these agencies will be able to help show off the up the revenues?
You know, I was having this informal, you know, conversation with a friend of mine, and I said, you see, as far as I'm concerned, even if you got every agency of government to enter into revenue drive, okay, the revenue has to be there before you can ramp it up. Okay, so what is important is not the amount of agencies that you're putting to ramp up revenue, but the amount of new revenue streams that you want to bring online. And each time people say that the coronavirus, you know, has afforded us, if you listened to the Minister of National Planning, okay, he was talking about now agriculture, now having agriculture run, now building the support infrastructure for agriculture to be able to give more. I think where we should be focusing on right now as a country is volume. Okay, I think last time I was on a program in your station here, I was talking about where is our NMPC for agriculture. Okay, where is that big conglomerate that's able to now, you know, ramp up? Because government, you know, runs at the level of policy. It's important that we know that. And if you're talking about a complete project development cycle, you have the policy, which is where government comes in, the enabling environment, legal frameworks, fiscal responsibility, monetary policy and all that, trade policies you've made even, okay? Now, and you now have your program, the program aspect, and you now have, what you call the actions. That makes it what you call a PPA. Now, at the level of programs and actions, this is where your feasibility is. This is where your funding, okay? This is where you begin to now build, what you call your return on investments or your return on equity. Now, it becomes very critical that this must be aligned. And this is why there must be a point where policy must meet business. And in this point where policy must meet business, we should, when the minister makes that pronouncement of saying, okay, we want to improve on agriculture, now all the ministry, all the government now owes is to be able to develop that framework, okay, physical, monetary, trade, okay, right, that can be able to now protect. And again, which is even more important for me, it will be your justice system, your legal systems that can now protect that investor who is bringing his money. And in this state, it is most expedient that for agriculture, which is the way for us to go now, okay, should not be treated as science of plants and animals, but now be treated as complete new business streams, okay, that must be decoupled. So that when people are now talking about agriculture, you don't talk about agriculture in generic, okay, in abstract. You are not talking about agriculture vis-a-vis food crops. What volumes, what are the national volumes that can be able to first and foremost, secure what you call national food security, and then begin to help us, look for what you call the market share.
That means you're saying agriculture is the way to go for us to...
I'm saying that you can apply it even to mining. You can apply it to even you can apply it to skills. Okay, there are countries that are exporting. At one time, I don't know if it's changed now. If you wanted anybody to do screeding in your house, the person was most likely going to be a Senegalese or non-Nigerian. If you wanted anybody to sew very good, embroidery dresses for you, the might be from Cote d'Ivoire or something. So we need to also look at our skill sets. It's important. So it's a gamut of a lot of things. It's not about formal education now. Okay, it's about what you call life skills. And the moment you're able to aggregate your life skills and now you begin to now apply them, okay, to these, sectors or subsets, you will find out that we can actually begin to grow Nigeria. You have 200 million people here who need dresses, okay?
Yes, sorry, I'll have to cut you in here. How can a government reduce spending is a question that is on the minds of many Nigerians.
It's very simple. How can government reduce spending? Government stops spending. Okay, and how is government going to stop spending? Government now makes certain that other income streams are available. I mean, you have a lot of facilities, developed, run by government. Has no business, in running business as business. Now, what government should be doing is to have, okay, I'll give you a very typical example now.
Okay.
In a country that has 300 dams, are you not surprised, maybe shocked, maybe alarmed, okay, that we are still importing fish? That in all our dams, I don't even think that there's anyone that is doing commercial fishing. Now, what do you think would happen if there was a program where government now got into a kind of relationship, with a group that was ready to now populate those dams, okay, with different kinds of aquatic life?
All right, very quickly before I let you go, what's the way forward to getting it right in terms of Nigeria's budget?
The way forward is very simple. We need to know what kind of budgeting we are doing. Okay. Are we doing demand zero-based budgeting, or are we doing envelopes? As long as we are doing envelopes, we're not going to get it right. What's the difference? The demand, the zero-based budgeting, or the demand-driven budget, which was what the government had actually promoted when they came, was not supposed to be result-oriented. You take what you need, and then that's one side. But what is even more important is that you must build synergies. You must be able to now aggregate MDAs, because you find out that there's a lot of relationship within the Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Water Resources, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Lands. Why can't they come together and have a common budget? Okay, you also have a lot of relationship with the Ministry of Science and Technology now oversighting these people. Now, why can't you also now aggregate your ministries in such a way that you now have your operational ministries, you have your ministries that now deal with technology, you know, and human capital development. You now have your ministries that might, you know, probably deal with your data generation or whatever. Now, the moment you get Nigeria to begin to run along those lines, we might just end up having only 3 blocks or 4 blocks of MDAs that now have, you know, common shared or co-shared infrastructure, and then they're able to develop a budget, you know, in synergy with each other.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Emeka Okengu, a development economist, for your thoughts with us on Business Express.
Pleasure, thank you for having me.
We'll have to move on now. Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, has been speaking on the face-off between ASU and the federal government over IPPIS enrollment. At the 2021 budget breakdown in the ministry's auditorium, the minister said government is keeping to its decision to capture all employees biometrically for a more transparent wage system.
Some tertiary institutions, and we can capture hospitals who have also peculiarities of consultants that visit several hospitals. What is different about the university system that they cannot be also captured? The bottom line for us is that there has to be a biometric capture of any person that is being paid by the funds of government. So universities claim they're independent. Yes, they are, in a manner of speaking, but the salaries is paid by government. You can only claim that level of independence if you generate and pay your own salary.
Oil prices were steady on Wednesday on concerns that fuel demand will continue to falter as rising coronavirus cases across Europe and in the United States could impede economic growth. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, said in its monthly report on Tuesday that oil demand in 2021 will rise by 6.54 million barrels per day to 96.84 million barrels per day. 80,000 barrels per day less than its forecast a month ago as a result of the economic dislocations caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Brent crude futures for December fell by 8 cents to $42.37 a barrel, while the U.S. West Texas Intermediate futures were down 9 cents to $40.11 a barrel. Stocks in Asia-Pacific were lower in Wednesday trade as investors monitor a speech from Chinese President Xi Jinping. Over to Bosede Abel for details.
Investors are considering the global economic outlook after the International Monetary Fund revised its forecast for economic growth this year. The global economy is now projected to contrast by 4.4% in 2020 in an update from an estimate of minus 4.2% made in June. European stocks were mostly higher in early Wednesday trading as coronavirus concerns weighed on global markets. U.S. stock index futures rose in early trading after the major averages registered their first day of losses in 5 trading sessions. Futures contrasts tied to the Dow Jones Industrial Average advanced 100 points. S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq 100 futures also traded in positive territory. Stocks in Asia were low on Wednesday as investors reacted to a speech from Chinese President Xi Jinping as the Shenzhen Special Economic Zone celebrated 40th anniversary of its establishment. Xi emphasized the importance of protecting the legitimate rights and interests of entrepreneurs, property rights, as well as intellectual property rights in accordance with the law, according to a translation of his speech. Shanghai Composite went down 0.56% to 3,340.78. Hang Seng Index closed fractionally higher at 24,667.09. Nikkei bucked the overall trend among the region's major markets as it rose 0.11% to close at 23,626.73. For Africa stocks, they opened mixed, with Tunisia's Tunidex and South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40 posting gains. Bosede Abel, Business Express.
And back home in Nigeria, trading on the Nigerian Stock Exchange closed at 0.00% this Wednesday at 28,344.3 basis points. Investors exchanged 218.4 million shares valued at 3.1 billion naira in 3,896 deals. Market capitalization closed the day at 14.8 trillion naira. Zenith Bank, UBA and Guarantee Trust Bank were the toast of investors as they recorded the highest volume of traded shares. And with the stock market, we've come to the end of this edition of Business Express. Be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on the NTA channel. You can also communicate with us on Twitter. The handle is @NTA News Now. And don't forget to use the hashtag BizX. Remember to follow the set-down guidelines to protect against COVID-19. Business Express returns on Thursday at 9:30 a.m. I am Muplang Dakok.